You know the place as St. Jude's Asylum, but to us, it was just the Old Asylum. The gas lamps in the corridors were always flickering, like they were about to give up and die, lighting up the peeling walls and showing off cracks and stains older than any of us. My boots would click on the worn floor, but the sound never lasted long because the building itself would just swallow it. The place had a sound of its own, a constant whisper and a groan, as if the building itself was breathing out 100 years of sorrow. And the smell, God, the smell. You never get used to it, no matter how long you're there. They tried to cover it up with disinfectant, that sharp, clean smell, but it was a losing battle. Underneath it all, there was always something else, that smell of damp rot, of dust, of forgotten people. And it just got into your clothes, your hair. You ended up taking the asylum home with you every night. People thought I was cynical, and you know what? They were right. But it wasn't because I'm a bad person, it was a shell, an armor, the only way to survive in that place without going mad yourself. I'd walk my rounds, a machine checking locks and windows. I saw nurses come and go, good ones, full of hope, but the place would just eat them up, chew them up, and spit them out. But I stayed. I told myself it was my duty, but being honest, maybe I just couldn't imagine a life anywhere else. One night, I was heading down the West Wing, which was always colder, more rundown. The paint wasn't just peeling, it had fallen off in big wet sheets like sores on the wall, and the air felt thick, heavy. That's when I thought about the new girl from the day before, the look in her eyes. Pure terror. She'd been whispering about eyes in the walls, and a doctor's smile. I dismissed it after all. You hear a lot of things in that place. But something about her fear felt real. It had stuck with me, like a little splinter under my skin, and for the first time in years, I found myself looking over my shoulder. The corridor opened up a bit, and I saw a door cracked open, like a wound. I slowed down, a strange feeling prickling my arms, and I looked inside. It was her, the new arrival. Her name was Sarah. She was curled up on the cot, so thin she looked like a skeleton in a gray gown, trying to make herself disappear. The air in her little room smelled of fear. A smell I know well, and it's a lot stronger than disinfectant. I pushed the door and the hinge screamed, making her jump, her whole body shaking. When she looked up at me, her eyes, God, her eyes were just holes in her face, wide and black with pure terror. It was clear she wasn't seeing me, not really. "All right, Sarah," I said, my voice rough. I've forgotten how to sound gentle. Just checking in. She didn't answer with words. Her eyes darted around the room, scanning every shadow, and her breathing was fast and shallow. Then she started whispering, her voice like sandpaper. "They're watching," she rasped, staring at a spot on the wall behind me. "Always watching." I looked. There was nothing there, just a stained wall. "Who's watching, Sarah?" I asked, my voice neutral. "The eyes," she breathed. "They're in the walls, always looking. And him. Him with the smile." I felt that old weariness settle in my bones. I'd heard it all before, or so I thought, the usual paranoia. "There's no one in the walls, Sarah," I said. "It's just the light." Her eyes locked onto a damp stain on the ceiling. "No," she whispered, and her voice got stronger, almost feverish. "It's a smile. A long, thin smile. He waits. He waits for us to break." I was about to make a note in my pad, just another textbook delusion, when my arm brushed against the wall, and the fabric of my coat made a small scraping sound. Sarah recoiled as if I had hit her. "You heard it, didn't you?" she hissed, her voice full of a terrible certainty. "The whisper. It told you about the smile." I froze. A whisper? I hadn't heard anything, but the look on her face, it made the hairs on my neck stand up. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, just my sleeve on the plaster, but then I heard it again, fainter this time, but longer, more deliberate. Sarah saw the change in my face, and her eyes lit up with a kind of awful triumph. "You hear it now, don't you?" she whispered. "He's talking to you. He wants you to know." My heart started hammering in my chest. I didn't believe in ghosts, but I knew what I heard, and for the first time in a long, long time, I was scared. The weight of all my years in that place felt heavier than ever, and my armor, my cynicism, felt thin as paper. I had spent 30 years walking through the shadows of that asylum, and for the first time, I felt like the shadows were starting to walk through me. Sarah's words. They dug something up. A memory I'd kept buried for years, about another nurse. Helen Evans. She wasn't like the rest of us. She was young, full of ideas I'd lost a long time ago. She actually believed we could help those people. Saw the darkness in the place, but she wasn't cynical. She wanted to understand it. We used to talk, sometimes in the staff room over stale coffee. She'd lean in, her voice low. "It's not just the patients, John. Don't you feel it? The building itself. It feels like it's watching." And then, one day she was just gone. The official story was that she resigned, couldn't handle the stress, but I never bought it. Helen wasn't the type to just walk away without a word, not to me. The silence from the administration was absolute. People were afraid to even ask. I remembered our last real conversation, just a few days before she disappeared. She'd stopped in the middle of the corridor and grabbed my arm. "John," she'd whispered, "did you hear that?" I hadn't heard a thing out of the ordinary. It's like a scratching from inside the walls, and then a whisper. She looked at me, her eyes pleading for me to believe her. "It's the building, John. It's not just old. It's alive. And it's angry." I brushed her off, told her she was overworked. God, I was a fool. I told her she was tired when I should have listened. After she vanished, I found an old ledger in the archives, full of codes and strange symbols I couldn't understand. I never told anyone. Who would have believed me? But I kept it. And now, hearing Sarah talk about the same whispers, the same feeling of being watched, it all came rushing back. The guilt hit me like a punch. I'd failed Helen, and now, looking at Sarah, I saw the same terror in her eyes. This place. It wasn't just a hospital, it was a tomb. You want to know what the real horror of a place like that is? It's not the screaming or the violence, it's the routine. The everyday stuff. The morning starts before the sun comes up, and you go from bed to bed handing out the pills. Sedatives mostly, things to keep everyone quiet, manageable. You don't think about what you're doing, you just do it. Then there were the restraints, the leather straps, the straitjackets. You get good at it, quick, efficient. You tell yourself it's for their own good, to keep them safe. But sometimes you feel more like a jailer than a nurse. We wrote everything down in cold, neat ledgers. Patient exhibited agitation, restraints applied. Clinical words for a terrible reality. You write it enough times, you stop feeling it. The hydrotherapy, dunking people in ice-cold water to shock them back to their senses. The casual cruelty of it all, hidden behind the language of medicine. The place was a machine designed to strip people of who they were, and I was one of the mechanics, keeping the gears turning. I'd gotten so used to it all that I'd stopped seeing the horror. Sarah was forcing me to see it again. And overseeing it all was the superintendent, Dr. Alistair Croft. He wasn't like the other doctors, he was cold. He moved through the wards like a ghost, and when he was around, everything went quiet. The patients felt it, we all did. He was tall, sharp, with eyes like chips of ice. When he looked at a patient, he wasn't seeing a person in pain, he was seeing a specimen, a puzzle. I saw him once with a patient, Silas, a man lost completely in his own world. Silas was arranging pebbles on the floor, and Croft didn't try to talk to him. He just knelt down and started sketching the patterns the man was making with the stones. It wasn't about helping Silas, it was about studying him, like he was a rare insect pinned to a board. A young doctor once told me Croft was asking about the internal logic of a man who thought he was a teacup. Not how to help him, but how the delusion worked. He wanted to know if the teacup felt the heat of the tea. That was the kind of man he was. He saw madness not as a sickness to be cured, but as a fascinating landscape to be explored, and the asylum with all its trapped souls was his private laboratory. I was in his study once, and he was looking at x-rays of patients' skulls. The very architecture of madness, he called it. He talked about their hallucinations, their terrors, not with sympathy, but with an intense scientific curiosity. He said, "If we seek to truly comprehend, we must be willing to observe, to catalog, and perhaps to prod." That word, prod. It sent a chill down my spine. This man wasn't a healer. He was an explorer in the darkest parts of the human mind, and he didn't care who he hurt on his expedition. I began to suspect that the real madness in the old asylum wasn't just in the patients, it was in the man in charge, and I for 30 years had been helping him.